I always thought betrayal would come like a hammer, loud, brutal, impossible to ignore. But mine came soft, quiet, like the faint scent of cologne I didn't own, clinging to my wife's shirt. Camille and I were, by all accounts, that couple. The kind people looked at and said, "You two are rock solid." We met in college, built a home together, and had just started talking seriously about having kids. She was a physical therapist, driven, smart, gorgeous in a subtle way. I ran field operations at my dad's construction company. Nothing flashy, but I provided well. I was proud of that. So when she walked in one night, hair disheveled, eyes tired, and offered a paper-thin excuse about traffic, I believed her. Until I hugged her and smelled it. Not her lavender shampoo. Not the usual hospital antiseptic she always reeked of after work. No, this was Tom Ford Noir, the same scent my brother wore. I laughed it off at first. Declan was my younger brother by 2 years, our company's flashy face and head of marketing. He was all charm and tailored suits, while I was grit and work boots. Mom always called him her golden boy. I used to think it was harmless. That night, I asked Camille casually if she'd seen Declan lately. Her hand froze over the stove. "Why would I?" she said. No eye contact. Stirred her pasta harder than necessary. That's when the itch began. That gnawing sense that something wasn't just off, it was rotten. I didn't say anything then, but I started watching. And what I saw next made my stomach turn. Once that suspicion planted itself in my mind, it grew like mold in a damp basement. Slow, invasive, and impossible to ignore. I started noticing the little things. Camille's late nights became more frequent. Physical therapy clients, canceling last minute. But she wouldn't come home until 10 p.m. Sometimes she wouldn't even text. When I asked how her day was, she'd snap. Defensive. Irritated. Not like her. Then there was Declan. He used to call me daily, updates about job bids, new client leads, nonsense like that. Then it stopped. Radio silence. At work, he avoided me. Barely looked me in the eye during meetings. I'd walk into the break room, and conversation would die like someone pulled the plug. I asked our assistant, Lisa, if Declan seemed okay lately. She hesitated, then gave me this weird half-smile and said, "He seems busy." It felt like the universe was clearing its throat, waiting for me to finally pay attention. So I did. I started checking Camille's phone when she left it lying around. Nothing in the texts, too clean. But I caught her deleting messages one night before bed. She said it was just clearing storage. She didn't realize I saw Declan's name flash across the screen. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I needed proof. Real proof. So I did what I never thought I'd do. I followed her. One Thursday night, she left the house around 8 p.m., dressed nicer than usual. Tight jeans. Red lipstick. Said she had an emergency consult with a patient. I waited 15 minutes, then tailed her in my truck. She didn't go to the clinic. She went to Declan's apartment and stayed there for 3 hours. I didn't go up. I couldn't. My hands were trembling so badly I could barely grip the wheel. When she came out around midnight, I watched her kiss him in the doorway. My little brother. My wife. In one moment, I realized my marriage, and maybe my family, was already gone. I barely slept that night. I lay in bed beside Camille, listening to her breathe. Her back was to me. She smelled like his cologne again. I stared at the ceiling, feeling my insides twist like wet rope. In the morning, I acted normal. Kissed her on the cheek. Made coffee. Even packed her lunch like I always did. I wanted to see how deep the lies ran. I needed to know how well she could fake it. She was all smiles. "You're sweet," she said. "Thank you, babe." It made me sick. At work, I couldn't focus. I kept imagining them together. Her hands in his hair. His smug face. All while I was here, breaking my back for this family. For her. I knew I had to tell someone. So I called my dad, Walter. He listened in silence. No reaction. No outrage. Just a low, steady voice. "You sure about this?" I said I was. He asked if I had proof. "Not yet," I admitted. He told me to keep it quiet. "Let's handle this in-house," he said. That was Dad's way. Calm. Strategic. But I could hear something burning beneath the surface. I went home that night hoping she'd confess. That maybe, she'd break down, cry, say it was a mistake. But she didn't. She talked about ordering a new coffee table. That's when I snapped. I walked into the kitchen, slammed my fists on the counter, and yelled, "How long have you been screwing my brother, Camille?" Her face went pale, then red, then pale again. She didn't deny it. She whispered, "Graham, I never meant to hurt you." That was worse than a lie. I turned, stormed out of the house, drove to Declan's apartment, and pounded on his door until my knuckles bled. When he finally opened it, shirtless, smirking, I lost it. The next few seconds were a blur of fists and screams. I don't even remember what I shouted. I just remember my father pulling me off of him. He'd followed me there. Somehow, he knew I'd do something reckless. Blood on my shirt, betrayal in my chest, and the last shred of peace I'd ever have in my family gone. The police showed up 20 minutes later. Someone in Declan's building called them. When they arrived, Declan was sitting on the couch with a bag of frozen peas on his jaw, milked the situation like he was some kind of victim. He told them I attacked him, that he feared for his life. Funny, he didn't seem scared when he opened the door to the man whose wife he'd been sleeping with. I expected to be arrested. I wasn't. My dad stepped in, spoke to the officers in that calm, businesslike way of his. Told them it was a family matter, that no one was pressing charges yet. But I could see it. This wasn't over. The next day at the company office, Dad called a meeting. Just the three of us. Him, me, and Declan, who showed up in sunglasses to hide the bruises. Dramatic as ever. Dad didn't yell, didn't lecture. He just looked at Declan and said, "You're done. Clean out your office." Declan's mouth opened, like he couldn't believe it. "You're firing me?" "Because he can't control his fists." Dad shook his head. "I'm firing you because you crossed a line that can't be uncrossed. You betrayed your brother. You betrayed this family." For a second, I almost felt bad for him. Almost. But then Declan turned to me and smirked, again, and said, "She came to me, Graham. Don't forget that." I nearly lunged at him again, but Dad held me back. That night, Camille didn't come home. She texted me, "I'm staying at a friend's. We need space." I didn't reply. The next morning, I found a manila envelope on the doorstep. Inside, divorce papers, filed under her maiden name. She wanted out, and half of everything. The woman who destroyed my heart now wanted to take my house, my savings, and the company I helped build. And Declan? He was just getting started. A week after Camille served me divorce papers, I got another surprise, this time from Declan. He was suing me for assault. I laughed when I read the letter from his attorney. Not because it was funny, but because the absurdity of it all had finally snapped something inside me. My brother sleeps with my wife behind my back, destroys my marriage, tears apart our family, and now I'm the one being dragged into court? But it wasn't a joke. Declan's lawyer claimed I caused permanent physical and emotional damage. Said I'd used excessive force and jeopardized the safety of a shared residential building. I called my dad. He was furious. "He's going scorched earth," he said. "You need a lawyer. A good one." Camille, meanwhile, remained silent. She didn't call, didn't come by the house. But through her lawyer, she made it clear. She wanted alimony, half the house, half my retirement, and, get this, continued access to our dog, Jasper. The same dog she hadn't walked in months. It was like watching a stranger wear my wife's face. My attorney, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Corinne, told me to stay calm. "Don't do anything that gives them more ammo," she warned. "Let the facts work for you. Let me do the punching." I hated that, sitting still while my world burned. But I listened. At the same time, Dad made it known at the company. Declan was no longer part of Whitaker Construction. No buyout. No payout. Just silence. Mom, of course, was livid. She accused me of turning everyone against Declan. Claimed I was overreacting and ruining the family. I asked her if she even cared that Camille cheated on me. She said, "People make mistakes." That was the moment I realized I didn't just lose a wife. I lost a mother too. And yet, somehow, the worst hadn't happened. Not yet. That would come months later, with a knock on my door and a single sentence that froze my blood. 3 months passed. The divorce was in full swing. The lawsuit dragged on, with Declan refusing to settle unless I paid damages and issued a public apology. As if I owed him anything. My lawyer was still confident we'd win. I just had to wait. Wait and heal. But healing didn't come easy. Nights were the worst. The silence of the house, the empty side of the bed, Jasper whining at the door waiting for a woman who wasn't coming back. I didn't go on dates. Didn't drink. I just worked. Hammered drywall, poured concrete, managed sites. Anything to keep from thinking too long. And then one night, Dad showed up at my door. Unannounced. He didn't come in. Just stood on the porch, face pale, jaw clenched. "Graham," he said, "I thought you should hear this from me." My heart started pounding. "What is it?" He looked down at his hands and muttered, "She's pregnant." The words felt like a gut punch. I didn't even have to ask who. I already knew. Camille was pregnant. By Declan. My knees buckled a little, but I caught myself on the doorframe. How do you know? Your mother told me. Declan called her. Said Camille's a few months along. They're not together anymore. He left her. My stomach twisted. The man she destroyed everything for left her. Now she was alone, carrying his child. And somehow, some way, I knew what was coming next. Dad hesitated, then added, "She's asking about you. Says she wants to talk." I didn't say anything. I couldn't. I just closed the door slowly and let the rage settle into something colder. Not fire. Ice. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to cry. I was going to end this. But on my terms. A week after my dad dropped that bomb, I got the knock I was expecting. It was around 7 p.m. I'd just finished dinner, was watching a documentary on wildlife, something mindless, peaceful. Jasper was curled up at my feet when the knock came. Slow. Hesitant. I already knew who it was. When I opened the door, there she stood. Camille. She looked different. Thinner. Tired. Her eyes were red, and her hair, usually done with perfect waves, was pulled back in a messy bun. She wore a sweatshirt I hadn't seen in years, my old college hoodie. And under that, a slight but noticeable bump. She whispered, "Hey, Graham." I didn't say a word, just stared at her. She tried to smile. "I know I'm probably the last person you want to see." Still, I said nothing. She glanced down, took a deep breath, and continued. "Declan's gone. He left 2 weeks ago. He said he wasn't ready, that I should figure things out on my own." I leaned against the doorframe and raised an eyebrow. "And you thought what? I'd play cleanup?" Her eyes filled with tears instantly. "No. I mean, yes. I don't know. I don't have anyone else." I laughed. A quiet, bitter kind of laugh. "You had someone, Camille. Someone who would have given you anything. And you picked my brother. You didn't just betray me. You chose to. Again and again." She looked crushed. But I didn't stop. "You're not here because you're sorry. You're here because he left. And now you're scared." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "Graham, I'm pregnant. And I'm alone. I don't expect you to forgive me. But I needed to try." She reached for my arm. I stepped back, looked her in the eye, and said, "This house is no longer yours to come crawling back to." Then I closed the door. Gently. Not in anger. In clarity. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt free. But the story wasn't over yet. There was still Declan. And he had one last surprise in store for me. A week passed after Camille showed up on my doorstep, and I didn't hear a word from her. No texts, no calls. Just silence. It was the kind of silence I could finally breathe in. I was starting to feel like myself again, eating better, sleeping longer, even joking with the guys on the job site. Then, just as the dust seemed to settle, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Thick, expensive paper. Inside, a formal document from Declan's lawyer. He was amending the assault lawsuit, now seeking punitive damages. He claimed that physical trauma had cost him a lucrative job opportunity and emotional distress that he was still recovering from. The figure at the bottom? $750,000. I read it 3 times before I slammed the paper down and laughed out loud. Not a real laugh. More like the kind that bursts out when you realize your life is being twisted into a parody. I called my lawyer, Corinne. Her voice was cool as always. "It's posturing. He's bluffing, Graham. It won't stand in court." "But what if it drags on?" I asked. "What if this ruins everything I've worked for?" She was quiet for a moment. Then she said something that stuck with me. "Declan wants to drag you into the mud because that's where he lives now. The more you stay clean, the more he'll hate it." She was right. That week, I made a choice. No more letting their chaos define me. No more reacting. I filed for a counterclaim, slander, and emotional distress. And then I did something even harder. I went to my mom's house to tell her face-to-face how her golden boy had turned our family to ash. She opened the door, surprised to see me. Before she could speak, I said, "Declan can try to take me to court. Camille can cry at my doorstep. But I'm done being the quiet one. The cleanup guy. This stable brother. I'm not cleaning up after this anymore." She didn't argue. She just stood there, silent. Because deep down she knew. She had chosen Declan for years. And now she was watching him burn. After that visit to my mom's house, everything changed. Not for the better. She stopped calling. No check-ins. No Sunday invites. Just cold silence. Like I was the one who tore the family apart. I wasn't surprised. She always saw Declan through rose-colored glasses. Even as he dismantled every good thing we had, she clung to some idea of him that no longer existed, if it ever did. Meanwhile, Camille started showing up more frequently. Once at the grocery store, once at the job site, unannounced. Each time, it was the same desperate look. "I don't want money," she said one morning as I walked out to my truck. "I'm not here for that." "Then what do you want, Camille?" I asked, genuinely confused. Her voice cracked. "I just want to feel human again. Like someone sees me." It was pitiful, but it wasn't my responsibility to fix the hole she dug for herself. She made her bed. And Declan? He stopped showing his face completely. Word around town was he'd tried to get a job in real estate, failed miserably. Rumor had it he was living out of a rental apartment above a rundown nail salon. Dad didn't speak to him, not once since the firing. For a man like Declan, being irrelevant was the worst punishment of all. The court date for the lawsuit was approaching. My counterclaim was holding strong. Corinne was confident. Camille, still legally my wife at that point, tried once more to talk things through. I didn't open the door that time, but I did leave a note taped to the front. "You made your choice. This isn't a home anymore. It's a consequence." She didn't come back again. And when the court date finally arrived, Declan didn't show up. Not out of fear, but because he had something else brewing. Something I never saw coming. The morning of the court date, I showed up in a suit that hadn't seen daylight since my wedding. Fitting, considering that entire chapter of my life was now standing trial. Corinne and I sat on the plaintiff's side, prepared for war. But Declan never walked through those courtroom doors. Instead, his lawyer arrived alone, and with a surprise. A thick folder, sealed, handed directly to the judge with a quiet explanation. The judge flipped through it, eyebrows raising with every page. Corinne asked for a copy, and we received 1 minute later. Inside, photos, text messages, video clips. Declan had apparently been documenting Camille's breakdown, secretly. Her crying, screaming, saying things like, "I should have never left Graham," and "I only chose you because I thought he was boring." The worst part? Some of those videos were filmed without her knowing. My stomach turned. It was disturbing, illegal even. But Declan wasn't trying to win the lawsuit anymore. He was trying to humiliate Camille, to punish her, to shift the spotlight of blame. Corinne whispered, "He's throwing her under the bus, backing out of the suit. This is his final move." Sure enough, minutes later, Declan's attorney stood and announced they were dropping the charges with prejudice. No payout. No settlement. The case was over. I should have felt relief. But all I felt was disgust. Because for all his charm, all his smirking confidence, Declan was hollow. Cruel. A man who would tear down a woman he once claimed to love just to dodge a little shame. And Camille? She had no idea what he'd done. Not yet. But she'd find out. And when she did, she'd have to face a bitter truth. Declan hadn't just betrayed me. He had destroyed her, too. Camille found out 2 days later. I didn't tell her. I didn't need to. The footage spread fast, thanks to Declan's habit of never doing anything quietly. One of the clips somehow ended up on a gossip forum connected to our town's social scene. A friend sent it to me. I didn't even watch it. Didn't need to. But Camille did. She called me that night. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail instead, sobbing, saying she had nowhere to go, that she didn't deserve this, that Declan had filmed her without consent and turned her into a joke. Her voice cracked over and over until finally, quiet. Then just one last whisper. I was wrong about everything. I didn't delete it. I didn't reply either. Instead, I listened to it once, then went outside and threw a baseball to Jasper until the sun dipped behind the trees. Camille wasn't the villain in Declan's story anymore. She was his collateral damage. And suddenly, for the first time since the betrayal, I didn't feel angry at her. Not forgiveness, but clarity. She traded a solid life with me for a fantasy. And Declan, being who he is, turned that fantasy into a slow-motion train wreck. The same charm he used to steal her became the same cruelty he used to ruin her. I heard from Dad later that week. He said, "Declan's left town. Packed up. No forwarding address." I asked if Mom knew. "She does," he said. "She just keeps setting the table for 3 like he's still around." That stuck with me, because I wasn't setting places for ghosts anymore. I was finally living alone, not in mourning, but in momentum. And the divorce? It was almost done. But Camille had one more move to make. And I never could have predicted what she'd ask. I was in the middle of reviewing bids for a new highway project when my phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. I let it go to voicemail. A few minutes later, Corinne, my lawyer, texted me. Camille filed a request to meet. In person. No lawyers. I stared at the message, half expecting it to vanish like a bad dream. I didn't respond right away. I didn't want to meet her. But Corinne called, and her voice was calm but firm. She says it's not about money. Says it's about closure. I laughed. She waited until now for closure? She's not asking for anything legally. She wants to talk. That's it. Final terms of the divorce are locked in. You're safe. So the next evening, I met Camille at the same coffee shop where we used to spend lazy Sundays, drinking black coffee and joking about how we'd raise our kids someday. Now we were two strangers. She looked tired, older than 32. The pregnancy showed more clearly now. Her hand trembled as she lifted her cup. I won't take long, she said. I just needed to say it to your face. I didn't speak. I let her. I ruined everything, she whispered. I know that. You didn't deserve what I did. And Declan, I thought he loved me, but I was just convenient. A way for him to beat you without swinging. Her eyes welled up, but she blinked it back. I'm not asking for sympathy. I just wanted to tell you I'm keeping the baby. Alone. And I'm moving. Somewhere far. I won't interfere in your life again. That part hit me harder than I expected. Because for so long, I waited for her to see what she'd done. And now she finally did. I nodded. Good, I said simply. She opened her purse and slid something across the table. It was a small photo, me and Jasper, smiling in the backyard. She must have printed it from my social media. I don't deserve to keep anything, she said. But I wanted you to know. I miss that life. I stood up, slipped the photo into my pocket, and told her the truth. That life is still here, just without you. Then I walked out, and I didn't look back. A week after the coffee shop meeting, the divorce was finalized. No drama, no last-minute bargaining, no surprises. Camille waived her claim to the house. She withdrew the request for spousal support. The only thing she asked for was to keep her maiden name on the final decree. It was done. I sat in Curran's office as she slid the signed documents across the desk. You're free, she said. I didn't smile. Not right away. Freedom felt heavy, like someone handed me my life back, but it was wrapped in the kind of silence only pain could carve out. Still, I thanked her. She gave me a firm handshake and a rare soft look. You handled this with more restraint than most people would have, she said. You didn't lose everything. In fact, you held on to what mattered most. She wasn't just talking about assets. She meant dignity. And she was right. I hadn't self-destructed. I hadn't begged, broken laws, or become a bitter shell. I just took every hit and got back up. The next morning, I opened the front door and let the cool air in. Jasper raced outside, barking at nothing in particular. I followed with a fresh cup of coffee, sat on the porch swing, and for the first time in months, felt peace. Real peace. Not the kind you fake when people ask, how are you holding up? The kind that seeps into your bones. Later that day, Dad called. There's something I'd like you to consider, he said. The board wants a new VP of operations, and they've got your name in mind. My heart stopped. For years, I was just the guy on the ground. The one who made sure the projects happened while Declan dazzled clients and wore $800 shoes. But now I was the future of the company. I didn't say yes. Not yet. But I didn't say no either. Because maybe, just maybe, life was finally turning the page. I took a few days before giving my answer to Dad. Not because I wasn't honored, but because I wanted to be sure I was doing it for the right reasons. I wasn't looking to prove anything to Declan, or Camille, or even to my mother, who still hadn't spoken to me since he left town. This wasn't about revenge. It was about me finally stepping into the role I'd earned. So I walked into Dad's office, sat across from him, and said, I'm in. Let's build something better. He smiled, the first real one I'd seen on his face in months. I never doubted you, he said. But I'm glad you finally see what you're worth. And from that moment forward, everything shifted. Work took on a new rhythm. I wasn't just managing crews anymore. I was negotiating contracts, overseeing regional projects, even mentoring new hires. For once, I was leading, not just executing someone else's vision. And people noticed. Clients respected me. Coworkers followed my direction without second-guessing. I stopped being Declan's brother and started being Graham Whitaker. One afternoon, I passed a framed photo of the original company founders, Dad, his father, and a much younger version of himself. And for the first time, I saw myself fitting into that legacy. Not as a tag-along, but as someone worthy. The best part? I didn't feel bitter anymore. About Camille. About Declan. Even about Mom. They chose their paths. I chose mine. I'd stopped looking in the rearview mirror. I wasn't running from the pain. I'd faced it. Survived it. Grown because of it. I wasn't healed exactly. But I was healing. And that was enough. 3 months into my new role as VP of Operations, I got a call from an unknown number while reviewing blueprints on site. Against my better judgment, I answered. It was my mother, Her voice was quiet, strained. Graham, can we talk? I froze. We hadn't spoken since the day I told her the truth about Declan. She hadn't even called when the divorce finalized. What's this about? I asked, keeping my tone steady. I heard you got promoted, she said. Your father told me. I wanted to say congratulations. It should have meant something, but it didn't. Thanks, I said flatly. There was a long pause on the other end. Then, I miss you. Another pause. Things with Declan. I don't know where he is anymore. He won't return my calls. I just thought, maybe I made mistakes. Maybe. That was as close to an apology as I was going to get. But it wasn't enough. I'm not angry anymore, Mom, I said. But I'm also not coming back just because you feel lonely now. I needed you when everything fell apart. And you chose to look the other way. She sighed, like someone trying to rearrange her guilt into something more convenient. I never thought it would go that far, she said. I didn't know. But she did. They always know. Take care of yourself, I said. But don't expect me to keep pretending like nothing happened. I hung up. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I wasn't the one seeking approval. I was standing on solid ground. And the people who left cracks in it, they were no longer invited back. It had been nearly a year since the night I found Camille at Declan's apartment. Time had dulled the edges of that memory, but every now and then, a scent, a song, or a silence too deep would drag me back. Then, one Sunday morning, I got a message request on social media. It was from Camille. Her profile picture was a blurry shot of her holding a newborn wrapped in a yellow blanket. No caption, no likes, just silence. Her message was short. He's here. Healthy. I named him Eli. I thought you should know. I stared at the screen for a long time. The old version of me, the man who once dreamed of starting a family with her, felt a ghost of something stir. But it wasn't longing. It was closure. She wasn't asking for anything. No help. No support. Just sharing a truth she knew I deserved to hear. I didn't reply, not out of cruelty, but because nothing needed to be said. Her life had moved on, fractured and rebuilt in her own way. Mine had too. I wasn't stuck anymore. Later that evening, I printed that message, folded it, and tucked it into a shoebox I kept in the back of my closet. Inside it were the divorce papers, a few old photos, and a copy of the lawsuit paperwork. My reminder of everything I survived, everything I overcame. I looked around my house, clean, quiet, filled with the smell of fresh coffee and sawdust from a small woodshop I'd built in the garage. Peace no longer felt foreign. It felt earned. Spring came fast that year. The kind that makes you believe in fresh starts. Not because things magically fix themselves, but because you do the fixing, one choice at a time. I spent most weekends in my garage, working on furniture projects. A new dining table, a bench for the porch, pieces made with my hands, my sweat, no one else's influence. One Saturday, I was helping install a custom stairway on a client's lake house when a young woman on the site asked, "Are you the Graham Whitaker? The VP?" I smiled. "Depends who's asking." She laughed. "You've got a reputation. People say you actually show up on job sites. Most execs just send emails." It was a small compliment, but it hit deep. Because for years, I was the overlooked one. The brother who stayed quiet. The husband who trusted too much. And now? Now I was the man who didn't just survive a betrayal. He built a better life from its ashes. That night, I grilled burgers out back and watched Jasper chase fireflies across the yard. I thought about the future. Maybe someday I'd fall in love again. Maybe not. But I wasn't rushing it. For the first time in my life, I wasn't waiting for anyone's permission to be happy. Not Camille's. Not Declan's. Not my mother's. Just mine. And that was more than enough. But before I close this chapter, there's one last thing you need to know. The part people forget after the dust settles. The part that matters most. People always ask the same thing when they hear my story. How did you not let it destroy you? They expect to hear about revenge. Or some grand moment of karma that fixed everything. But that's not real life. The truth is, I did break. I shattered. When I saw Camille with Declan, when my own mother chose silence over support, when I faced lawyers, lawsuits, and late nights in an empty house, I wanted to disappear. But I didn't. Not because I was stronger than most, but because I made a decision to stop handing the steering wheel of my life to people who crashed it. You see, betrayal doesn't just steal your trust. It tries to steal your identity. And if you let it, it'll tell you that you're the problem, that you weren't enough, that you deserved it. But I looked that lie in the face and said, no, I was enough. I was loyal. I was honest. I gave everything I had. And now? Now I'm living a life they can't touch. Declan's gone. Camille is raising a child on her own. My mother is left with the quiet she never thought would come. And me? I kept the house, kept my dignity, kept my dog, and gained a deeper understanding of who I really am. This isn't a story about a broken man. It's a story about a man who was broken and built something better from the wreckage. No bitterness, no revenge fantasy, just peace. The kind you choose every single day. And if you're going through something like I did, remember this. You don't need to set fire to their world to win. Just walk away and build your own. If this story moved you, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more powerful stories. Your support means everything and helps us keep bringing you the drama, emotion, and real-life twists you love.